Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Roy. You were the only one to respond then, Roy. Thank you so much. I'm glad you turned up today. Well, it's fantastic to see so many of you here today to honour the unforgettable Gracie Fields. I would particularly like to welcome our special celebrity guest, Roy Hood. Wonderful man, and you'll get to see him and know him a lot more later, I'm sure. Who has travelled up from Suffolk to honour his late friend and fellow star. Between them, Gracie and Roy have put smiles on millions of faces, people from all over the world over many, many a year. And it's an honour to have Roy with us here today. Also, thank you, Roy. Come on. How do you follow this fella? Also here today is Sue Devaney, who brought Gracie so vividly to life in last year's fantastic production, Our Gracie, the Oldham Coliseum. Gracie was born above a chip shop. I have been practicing that all morning. In Rochdale, and went on to become an international star. She showed the world that all the best things come from Rochdale. And thank you. And as a council, we felt it was high time that we gave her a proper tribute. With help from Seb Lizandro, from the Gracie Fields Appreciation Society, the Rotary Club of Rochdale East, and the charity Grantscape, we brought in talented sculptor Sean Hedges Quinn. Now, following Sean's hours of painstaking work to recreate her magnetic stage presence, the Gracie statue is now here, ready for the world to see. You might say Gracie's back in Rochdale where she belongs. Just a couple of add-ons to my speech, because you find things out when you sort of like turn up at the town hall and the leader says, while you're on that, on that dais, don't forget to say this, that and the other. So just bear with me on my couple of points. But I think it needs to be known, really, that probably in Rochdale there's only 5 people who have actually seen the statue. But there's also someone else very important to us, and that's the Queen. Because I'm led to believe, while our wonderful sculpture was being made and prepared for us today, the Queen visited to look at a sculpture of herself when she was younger, feeding a horse. And while at the foundry, she actually went to look at our Gracie statue. So she had a pre-look at what's taking place today, which is really important, I think, for us. And the second thing is, people might not know that, but the acts of Rochdale Hornets, I believe, have got some promotion. Any rugby people in the crowd? Well, thank you. The other thing to remember as well is that I believe actually that Gracie sponsored Rochdale Hornets and bought them kit in the past. So isn't it fitting also today that we've got the statue, we've got the Hornets now winning promotion, and the 6th person to see the statue is the Queen. So I think the 7th, and it'll be very important to remember, the 7th, if you're facing the right way, Mr. Hood, you will be the 7th person to unveil it and actually see this wonderful statue, and we're all dying to see it. So no more from me. Thank you, everybody.
My name's Alessandro, and as Janet has said, I'm from the Gracie Fields Appreciation Society. In 1937, when Gracie Fields sang about a little Lancashire town, she extolled all the problems that modernisation had done to the town that she loved so much. She complained that the local pub had been taken over by chromium and neon lights, and she complained that all the young girls are spending their money on perms and wireless sets. But most importantly, she sang about where the rubbish pit once used to be, they've bunged up a statue to me in a little Lancashire town. Now, at last, we are indeed bunging up a statue to her, but thankfully I think we avoided the rubbish pit. And we found a perfectly fitting location to bring Gracie home for good. I've been involved with Rochdale's Gracie project from the start. After a talk I did on her life about 3 years ago, members of Rotary East introduced themselves to me as they were planning an obelisk in tribute to Gracie. They asked if I'd like to come on board as their Gracie expert. When Councillors Farnell and Janet Emsley came on board and the project spiralled from an obelisk to a statue via a heritage trail, I've been thrilled to be a part of every stage of the planning and preparation which brings us here today. I first heard Gracie about 10 years ago when I was studying for a project on the Second World War at high school, and I heard an unusual voice on a compilation CD. I thought, that can't be the same woman singing the Ave Maria and then an up-tempo number called Sing As We Go. It had to be somebody different. However, when I first visited Rochdale as a fledgling Gracie fan, I wrote in the visitors book at Touchstones just how disappointed I was that there was no formal tribute to Gracie in the town of her birth. Never did I imagine that 10 years later we'd all be stood here celebrating the very same woman in a tribute which, personally, I feel is long overdue, but I'm thrilled that we're here today to put right. Although Gracie lived all of her adult life away from Rochdale, she never forgot its town and, as she called them, its Gradely folk. When she was awarded the freedom of the borough here in 1937, she exclaimed that it was the proudest day of her life, and she regularly returned for charity weeks and concerts, raising thousands of pounds for her native borough. From hospitals and care homes to charities and even the Hornets rugby team, Gracie gave time and money to her native town, right up to her death in 1979. When asked in 1956 by Lancashire Life what Rochdale meant to her, Gracie said Rochdale meant first. She said that in Rochdale I first opened my eyes. In Rochdale I first cried, I first laughed, I first heard the birds sing. I sang too for the first time, and in Rochdale I wore my first pair of clogs. My first and only schooling took part in Rochdale at the parish school. My first tram ride around the town, my first swimming lesson in the baths, and when very young we used to slip into the ship canal for an extra swim during the hot summer days. My first job was an errand girl at a confectioner's shop, and my first song on the stage was sung at the old circus. And now we're all here to unveil the first statue, a fitting legacy to the first and greatest lady of the British music hall stage. On her last visit here in 1978, crowds flocked to this very location where we are today to see the 80-year-old legend, and although she died 13 years before I was born, I'm delighted that we can all gather here today on Sunday, September 18th, without doubt the most important date in Gracie history since her death. We wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the hard work of Donald and Frank of Rochdale Rotary East, Councillor Janet Emsley and leader Richard Farnell, and all the excellent team at both the Town Hall and the Council who have worked tirelessly in bringing Gracie back to Rochdale. A special thanks from me personally to my friend, actor, comedian, and the president of the British Music Hall Society, Mr. Roy Hood, who has agreed to be with us today, and for joining us to unveil our amazing sculpture by the ultra-talented Sean Hedges-Quinn. And I thank him personally also for capturing in bronze the image and the spirit of our Gracie. She is stunning. Although she's buried on the Isle of Capri, Gracie's heart firmly remained in Rochdale. And now, our Gracie has come back one for good, and it's reet grand. Thank you, everybody.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome to the dais Mr. Roy Hood.
Direct from Butlins, here I am. Well, it's lovely to be here, and can I just say, I never ever liked statues when I was a kid. They were always grim-faced blokes in military uniforms and that glaring at you, and I always used to hurry past them when my gran, who brought me up, took me to musicals all over London, and she agreed with me. She said statues celebrating men who were responsible for killing people, not right. They should celebrate people who made us happy, made us laugh and sing and entertained us. But no one ever did until fairly recently. Now, we're more intelligent now. We have statues of our favourite entertainers all over the country. Eric Morecambe in Morecambe, Les Dawson in Blackpool, Ken Dodd in Liverpool, Norman Wisdom and George Formby on the Isle of Man, Max Miller in Brighton, and in Thetford, I should say, Arthur Lowe, Captain Mainwaring, by our sculptor Sean, and it's a beautiful job he did with it too. No women though among that list until today. Eh? When I told friends in the business and lots of other people too, their reply was a 100% about time and all. We owe today's celebration to the people that have already been thanked, particularly Seb and Grace's great #1 fan, John Taylor, Janet Emsley, and the Rochdale Council. Well, it's always an event when a council do something that everyone agrees with, isn't it? Today is a celebration for Rochdale, for all of us who agree that Gracie Fields was the greatest female performer this country has ever produced. A witty, gloriously voiced, down-to-earth, wonderful entertainer and actress. Now, there are lots of other performers who we admire for their talent and everything, but how many do we love? Gracie was loved. Our Gracie, and not only by Rochdalians, but by all of us. She was our Gracie too, you know. She was one of us. She was the same all the way through her life. She was great at removing pomposity. Thank you. I was just getting to the tag, Grace, don't kill it. In 78, when she was made a dame, she announced to the press, she said, "So now I'm a dame. Great, as long as they don't call Boris Buttons." She said, she did a straight play in London with the great actor Sir Gerald de Maurier, who fancied her and chatted her up. And her reply to him was, "Leave it out. You're old enough to be me bloody dad," she said. The cast in that play, it was a very legit sort of play, cold-shouldered her and never spoke to me because they thought, oh, someone from Variety, that's all we need. And it really got up her nose. So one morning just before rehearsals, she did 3 cartwheels across the stage and turned to them and said, "Now, can any of you buggers do that?" Oh, no, Maria himself said, "Well, it's very difficult having Gracie Fields in the show because she dies at the end of Act 2, he said. And at the start of Act 3, I come on, and there's only 1/3 of the house left." They've followed her across to the Palace Theatre, where she was topping the bill in Variety. How about that for a double? Not bad, eh? And just a couple of personal stories. I first met Grace with my agent of 50 years, a man called Maurice Azer. And Maurice was Grace's nephew. And his uncle was Archie Pitt. Not a very nice man, but she did actually say about him, Grace, he was the man who made me a star. And his brother, Bert, sister Lillian, they were both Grace's agents. And I met her in Maurice's garden. Walked in and she's sitting at the table there with her agent and that. And she looked and she introduced him to me and she said, "Are you as funny as you look?" I said, "Well, I hope so." She said, "You'll do well then, I tell you." I last saw her just down the road from here at the Batley Variety Club. Very, very blasé audience they were then. They'd had everybody there, all the biggest stars in the world, and lots of them sat there thinking, who's this little old lady coming on here now? And she walked on, Sally, Sally, politish applause, but she wasn't doing that great. Then she spoke to the conductor, and all the music went up in the air and the lads all changed the order, and she went into a song that was #1 in the charts that week. "Those Were the Days, My Friend." And I heard for the very first time just what the words this little old lady had brought to life. She'd lived a life that the song was all about. She paralysed him and followed it with "Following the Rochdale Hounds," she said. That went straight into it. Once she got him, she was away. She looked around the room at the audience at Batley, noshing their fried suppers, and she said, "I was born in a fish and chip shop, you know. I never thought I'd be singing my songs in once." But I stayed. I had the great joy of staying in Capri with her a couple of times. And I remember the first afternoon I sat next to her while she answered her fan mail. She was nearly 80, and there were dozens of letters. And she answered every single one in her own handwriting on a postcard of Capri, plugging her restaurant. And the evening I'll never ever forget as long as I live, a magic time. We were sitting on the balcony of a house in Anna Capri, looking out at the purple sky with covered in stars, and she confided and she said, well, they've asked me to do another LP. You know, LPs we used to call them in those days. She said, they've asked me to do another LP. I said, oh, that's great, Grace. And she said, yeah, but it's a bit disappointing. They only want me to do the old songs, you know, Sally and Biggest Aspidestra and all that. And I'd like to do some new ones. She said, I have some wonderful new songs out now. She did actually record one marvellous one, the theme from The Godfather, Speak Softly Love, that one. She did it so beautifully. But she said, there's one song I'd really like to record. And I said, what's that? And she sat there that gorgeous evening in Capri, and she sang Send in the Clowns. And as I'm telling you the story now, the hairs are going up on the back of my neck, really. It was a marvellous moment. Now, she played the Palladium so many times, but Lillian Azer, her agent, told me about the most important one. Now, I'm sure you all know about this, but during the war, the press accused her of abandoning the country, wrongly. And it got so bad that Churchill, in the House of Commons, said, this vilification of Miss Gracie Fields must stop. She is the greatest worker for the war effort, a greater than anyone I know. And they stood there at the Palladium. This was her big comeback, her first appearance after all this bad stuff had been said about her. And Lillian and her husband were her agents, and they're standing at the back of the Fiat Palladium. And they said, look, Grace, you must tell us what songs you're going to sing. It's so important. We must capture the people back again. And she said, went right through the list. She was terrific at putting a list of songs together. But she wouldn't tell them what she was going to open her act with. So they're standing at the back and they're holding hands and they're thinking, this could be our living down the Swanee. Really could. On came Grace, Sally, Sally, reasonable applause, but what did she start? Her first song, La Vie en Rose, of which the opening line is, take me to your heart again. What about that? For someone who really knew what she was about. But today's world of entertainment, when people win fame and fortune via a couple of weeks on a TV talent show, and they're called stars, they're usually kids who haven't learnt their business. Gracie went through the card from the age of 8. What an apprenticeship, eh? Theresa May would be proud of her, I tell you. She became, before the world had even been thought of, a superstar. A superstar and a star human being. So welcome back to Rochdale, and particularly Christmas Tree Island. Dame Gracie Fields.
There's obviously a few emotional moments there. Now going to invite Roy, the Mayor, Ray Dutton, and Sebastian, and the Mayor, where's the Mayoress? The Mayoress, Elaine Dutton, and Seb Lissandro to unveil our statue to our Gracie. Absolutely fantastic. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the choir. The choir, not about Billy, no. The choir came together yesterday at 11 o'clock at Touchstones. We put together a call out for people to come and sing. Just wait for that a minute. And basically, all the people that you see here responded to that call. They came along at 11 o'clock, they really didn't have any idea about what they were going to be asked to do, and they've performed those 3 songs from then. Thank you, Joanna. Fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Some of them are in choirs. They're not from any one particular choir, because the problem was that if I'd have asked one choir to sing, somebody might have said, well, why didn't you ask us? So we asked anybody, and they're from different choirs, and perhaps they may come together for another performance. But that was the world first premiere performance. Well done, guys. They did ask if they could go on X Factor, but bearing in mind what Roy said about talent today, perhaps that's not a good idea. So thank you to the choir. I'm now going to introduce a young lady who back at Easter this year performed on the stage at the Oldham Coliseum when she personified our Gracie at the Coliseum in a play by Philip Golding. It was called Our Gracie. She's going to perform for you today, accompanied by Robin Chico. Robin and Sue have only practiced this a couple of times, but I know it's going to be absolutely perfect. Practiced once. Yeah, that practice, no. So, ladies and gentlemen, the young Sue Devaney.
Good afternoon. That makes the thingamabob that's going to win the war. It isn't all, as she said. Hey, and as Gracie said, well, her mother used to say, we're going up in world, you know, oop, not down. Well, we're going oop with this statue, aren't we, eh?
You're more